This happened to me roughly 2 years back, while I was making the long drive from New York down to Tennessee to visit an old college buddy. I made that trip solo, which honestly I prefer. There's something I've always liked about long drives. Alone. You throw on a podcast, let the miles roll by, and stop whenever you feel like it. No schedule, no compromises. I'd left before sunrise, thinking I could push straight through without stopping overnight. By the time midnight rolled around, though, I was somewhere in Virginia, off a highway I couldn't name if I tried. And I was the kind of type where keeping your eyes on the road felt like an active struggle. I pulled off at one of those exits, where the only options are a gas station, a fast food place, and a couple of aging motels. I picked the cheapest one. All I needed was a few hours of sleep. I wasn't looking for luxury. The place lived up to its price point. 2 stories, every room facing the parking lot, half the exterior lights flickering or dead, barely any cars out front. I almost turned back around and kept driving, but exhaustion won, I figured. It's just a bed for a few hours. How bad could it be? The front desk was behind thick plexiglass. The guy working the night shift looked to be in his 50s and barely acknowledged me when I walked in. I paid for the room, grabbed my key card, and asked him if the place was pretty empty that night. He said most of the upstairs rooms were vacant. I remember that making me feel better. I figured at least there wouldn't be people making noise. All night, oh. The irony? My room was on the 2nd floor, near the far end of the building. Old, a little musty and humid. The AC unit made a grinding, rattling sound the second I turned it on. So I left it off. I seriously considered just sleeping in my car, but I was already there, already paid, too tired to care. I locked the door, drew the blinds, showered, and climbed into bed with the TV on low. About 20 minutes in, I started hearing arguing through the wall. A couple fighting, I figured just what I needed. The walls were paper thin, thin enough that I could hear 2 distinct voices, but not make out exactly what was being said. The other was softer, higher pitched. It didn't sound quite right. Like a man doing a deliberate impression of a woman, rather than an actual woman speaking. The back and forth kept going. And the longer I listened, the more something felt off about it. Real arguments have overlap, people cutting each other off, talking over each other. But this had none of that. Each voice waited perfectly for the other to finish, like someone reading lines from a script they'd memorized. I turned my TV all the way down and just listened. That's when it clicked. It was one person doing both voices. Once I heard it that way, I couldn't unhear it. The natural voice, and then the same man shifting into something different. An imitation, a performance. The pit in my stomach that formed in that moment was unlike anything I'd felt in a long time, because this wasn't a noisy neighbor argument. This was something else entirely. The voices continued for another few minutes, then went completely silent. I lay there staring at the ceiling, hoping whatever that was had run its course. Then came 3 slow, deliberate knocks on the wall right beside my bed. I froze. A muffled voice came through. "I can hear you in there." I held my breath. Then the knocking came again. Same rhythm, same words, like he was waiting for a response. Trying to drown it out. For about 30 seconds, nothing. Then I heard the vibration of a door open down the balcony. He had left his room. The footsteps on the balcony were getting closer. My blinds were almost fully shut, except no explanation. No motive. Nothing. They charged him with armed breaking and entry, but investigators never figured out why. He specifically chose my house. The officers even admitted they believed robbery wasn't his real intention. That thought haunted me for years. Because if he only wanted money, why sit upstairs quietly in my bedroom with weapons laid out beside him? Instead of running the second he heard police outside. The more I replayed that night in my head, the more disturbing it became. What if I had answered the phone earlier? What if I had opened the door, thinking he needed help from the storm? What if I had tried running upstairs instead of hiding? I honestly believe I survived. Even now, over 20 years later, the exact sound of those slow footsteps moving through the hallway, sometimes during heavy rainstorms, those memories come rushing back stronger than ever. What makes it worse is never knowing the truth. Maybe I was randomly targeted. Maybe he had been watching me for days. Or maybe those mysterious phone calls were never random at all. To this day, I still wonder if the person calling my house that was actually the man standing outside my door, waiting to see if anyone was home. And honestly, that question is far scarier than knowing the answer. A few years later, another stormy night. My mom had left town for one of her regular work trips. At first, I didn't mind it. I spent the day playing video games, watching YouTube, and enjoying the sound of rain pouring outside. By afternoon, the storm had grown heavier. Dark clouds covered the sky so much that the house looked like night. Even though it was only around 2 p.m., I ended up falling asleep on the couch downstairs. That's when I heard it whistling. Soft, slow. He knocked on the door next to mine. No answer. He stood there a full minute, knocking and asking the guy to come out. Nothing. Eventually, he came to me. I opened the door and explained everything. When I finished, he paused for a moment before telling me the man had been staying there for a while. That was all I needed to hear. I asked to switch rooms. He said yes without hesitation and moved me near the front office, close to the parking lot and my car. The new room was nearly identical, but it felt like a different world. No one next door management nearby. And after a long while, exhaustion finally pulled me under. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up. Again, it was still dark. What pulled me out of sleep was a sound, movement outside the window. I looked toward the blinds and watched a shadow pass slowly across the gap. Then it passed again. I crept to the window, moved the blinds just a fraction, and looked out. It was him. The same man from upstairs. He was walking past my new room, back and forth over and over, but this time he wasn't making any sounds. No voices, no knocking. He was just walking the length of the building, glancing toward my window. Every single time he passed, the silence made it worse. The chaos before had been terrifying. I watched him do it 4 or 5 times before he disappeared around the back of the motel. I didn't sleep again. The second the sky started getting light, I packed everything up, threw it in my car, and drove off without returning the key card. I stopped at a gas station down the road for coffee. My hands were still shaking when I held the cup. That was just story 1. Story 2 involves a group of women on a road trip. A motel lobby, a man who heard too much, and a moment outside a door that turned everything from unsettling to genuinely terrifying. Stay with me. This one happened in 2022, when I was a freshman at college in Central Texas. Spring break arrived, and my family drove out to pick me up from my dorm so we could take a road trip together. It was an all-girls trip meet. 3 of my sisters, my stepmom, and my grandma, we drove up through Oklahoma to explore some Native American history my stepmom has a personal connection to, then swung over to Branson before the break ended, and we needed to head back. The drive back was long, and by 8 in the evening, we were all drained. We stopped at a random motel off the highway to get some sleep before finishing the drive in the morning. We checked in, paid, and before settling into the rooms, decided to go grab some pizza nearby. Before we left, we swung by the rooms to drop our bags off. My grandma called to ask for the room number so she could change clothes, and my sister answered out loud right there in the lobby. That's when I noticed him. A man standing near the entrance of the building. Not doing anything, just standing there. I've always been the type to stay aware of my surroundings, maybe more than most people. Something about this man made every alarm in my head go off quiet, but instantly. Just standing, Watching that, I mentioned it to my sister. She brushed it off, but I'd already realized the problem. Our room number had just been said out loud. In a motel with thin walls and an open lobby. Well, within earshot of a man I didn't trust. We had to walk right past him to get to the exit. When we did, he looked at me. That look stayed with me the entire time we were out. We came back around 10 or 11 that night, tired and just ready for sleep. As we walked through the lobby, I saw him again this time. He was sitting in the far back corner of the lobby, in a section where the lights weren't even on, just sitting in the dark doing nothing. I walked faster. My grandma called again for the room number. My sister said it out loud again. I didn't sleep with ease that night, knowing he'd now heard it twice. We were barely settled in when the knock came at the door, and what my stepmom told us next about what she found waiting just outside her door in the dark hallway. Part 4 is the conclusion you won't want to miss. We got upstairs and split into our rooms. My 2 sisters and I were in one room. My other sister's stepmom. For a few minutes, everything seemed fine. We were just on our phones, winding down, almost ready to sleep. Then came a knock at the door. I'd already been talking to my sisters about how uneasy I felt, so my heart dropped the moment I heard it. But it was our stepmom the second we opened the door. She stepped inside quickly, and just the look on her face told me something had happened before. She said a single word. She told us to start packing right now. While we threw things into bags, she explained what happened. She had cracked her door open to toss some trash into the hallway and found a man standing silently against the wall beside her door. He wasn't startled when the door opened. He didn't flinch or step back. He just turned and stared at her for a long moment. Then, without a word, he walked calmly into the empty room between the 2 rooms our group was occupying. That was enough. We were leaving. My stepmom went to the front desk and, surprisingly, got a full refund after explaining the situation. The rest of us moved toward the exit, and as we walked out into the parking lot, we saw him again, the man in black. From the lobby was stepping out of the elevator, heading back down to the ground floor ice, tracking us as we moved. Then we noticed someone else. Another man near the far end of the parking lot. Hands cupped against car windows, peering inside, jiggling door handles, testing each one. He was methodically working his way through the lot. When he heard us getting to the car, he looked up. Then he glanced back toward the motel entrance and tilted his head, signaling. We had already started piling into the car. Didn't become something worse. A third man came walking out of the motel entrance. Now there were 3 of them, spread across the parking lot, all slowly moving in the direction of our car. Trying to explain the situation. Everyone in the car was begging her to drive. She finally did. We peeled out of that parking lot, before finding another place to stop. That motel had cockroaches. I had never been so genuinely relieved to see cockroaches in my life. I still don't know what those men were planning, or how coordinated it really was. But the way the first man had spent that entire evening, positioning himself listening for our room number twice, and then showing up outside our door in the dark. It wasn't random. Whatever it was, we got out before it could reach its conclusion.